Hello, welcome back. I'm Thomas and this is Building on a Budget Models. Today we're building the Tamiya 1/24th scale Honda S2000. This is a pretty good looking kit despite being 26 years old, and I'm making this as a replica of the Opera Performance S2000 which featured in Gran Turismo. And that means I'll need to add a few things such as these wings here. Now this is the Tamiya Ings wing set, which also comes with seat belts and photo etch. Have actually already used the photo etch, and you can see it's got these carbon fibre decals as well. Now what I'm going to do is sand these down and then glue these together, and I'm then not going to paint them because I'll put the decals over the top. So what's the point in painting something that will be completely covered with decals? Make sure you get the right supports here. Now it's a good idea to assemble this first, because then you can line it up with the model itself in order to create the holes to put the spoiler in the right place. I drilled these through and then used this circular file to open them a little bit wider. And there we are, you can see that sits quite nicely. Good. Oh dear. Now there's a few places for the decals to go, such as the metal Honda badges, which I'm not going to be using, so I sanded those down, as well as some of the mould seams around the front and the back. And also removed this support section across the middle. Then it was time for the carbon fibre. Now there's quite a lot of carrier film on these. I think if I was doing this again, I think I'd try to trim that, because I wasn't quite happy with how these lay down. The Opera Performance S2000, which appeared on Gran Turismo 4, 5, 6 and PSP, has deep ties to the developer Polyphony Digital, as they used game data from the making of the video game series in order to affect the performance. This one is supposedly based on game creator Kazunori Yamauchi's own car. This kit was purchased from Kent Models. You can get 10% off your order there by using the code BOAB10. Terms and conditions apply, and it benefits me and the channel. Thanks a lot. Now I looked at pictures of the real car and ones from the Gran Turismo series to get all the decals in the correct places, and then used Microsoft Publisher to come up with these. If you want to know how I did this, look at the link above. Ones like these that go along the panel lines on the front of the bonnet needed to be shaped correctly, and then go right along the edge of the bonnet line. Incidentally, the car has been painted in gloss white from Tamiya. I used my Galeri airbrush for that. I forgot to record it though. You can see this purple pattern. Started with the most challenging decals before going on to some of the simpler ones. Ones that went around edges, things like that, were often the ones I started with. So these were printed on transparent decal paper, whereas the decals that I add to the roof later on were printed on white decal paper. I find that custom decals like this don't like being moved around very much, so it's important to get the correct position straight away. You can see here the Polyphony Digital decals showing the association with Gran Turismo. If you're a video game player, do you have a particular favourite racing video game series? I think for me it probably is Gran Turismo. I think that probably helped by the fact that I've been a PlayStation owner now for, oh my gosh, nearly 30 years. It's important to get the purple correct here. I actually had to print these ones twice just to get them right. First time they came out looking a bit more blue. This one here needs to be cut to the right size to fit between the two jet washers. The real car has vents on the bonnet here, but I decided not to add them as decals. You can get an aftermarket resin bonnet to replace it, but I decided to keep this as close to the original kit as possible. Now for the roof, which was painted in gloss black, I then printed these decals onto white back decal paper and then cut them very close around the edge to try and make them look as neat as possible. This one came out slightly grey, but I think it looked okay, especially after the clear coat went over the top. So I gave this and the bodywork 5 coats of Kaleido clear gloss from Livery, which came out really nicely. I'll show you the polishing later on. Now for the underside. So there's no engine on this, but there is some mechanical detail, including the suspension and brakes. After painting all of these, it was then time to assemble them. You got polycaps in there to help the wheels fit into place. I also painted the calipers red just to help them stand out a little bit. This kit's got 2 sets of wheels. You've got the original ones and then you've got these gold ones. I'll show you which ones I went for later. And the rear axle is all sandwiched together like so. Now for the suspension coils, I painted the inside silver and then went over the springs with this red Sharpie just to pick that out, make them look a bit more like real suspension springs. The underside was painted white and then I added black and silver iron details. So there we are, that all fits together very nicely. Just a small amount of glue in the top. Some people complain about the fact that a lot of Tamiya kits are curbside. Personally, I don't usually display models with the bonnet open, so you can't really, that doesn't make much of a difference to me. What are your opinions though? Do you prefer engines in your models? You can also see I painted the radiator silver behind that. Now for the exhaust, this is a mixture of iron, a bit of titanium gold and satin black. Then I went over this with this Tamiya weathering powder, bit of burnt orange, bit of burnt blue. Now for the exhaust tips themselves, I replaced the kit ones with these slightly larger ones which I had in the spares box. These did have to be adjusted slightly, as they didn't join onto the original ones, so I snipped these down to make them just a kind of pinpoint and then drilled into the exhaust tips. Then used a small amount of super glue to attach those. Pretty happy with that. This all clips together quite nicely. There we are. Now there's a small decal sheet, and the only one here that I'm actually using is the instrument display. Dashboard was painted in satin black, and I picked out a few details with these Posca paint pens, like little red switches. And I added this aftermarket steering wheel. It's like a kind of racing one, which I painted satin black in the middle and matte red around the outside. Couple of parts to go into the center console here. Now the interior I painted silver. I left out a few pieces to make it look stripped down, and then I used these Recaro style seats which I had left over from the Spoon Civic kit that I made earlier this year. Drilled through the tops to add the racing harness, and for these I used a bit of leftover photo etch and this kind of sticky back plastic stuff cut into thin strips. It's quite useful using self-adhesive straps like this because you don't need any glue. I didn't have a full set of photo etch buckles, so I kind of made do with what I had. Then I added the Sabelt decals, which I cut out of some decal seat belts from another kit. There's a couple of small photo etch parts just securing the seat to the back there. Now the ones I actually saw did actually have two seats, but I decided to make this look more lightweight, more racing by just including the one seat here. Then adding the door cards, which are also in black. There we are. I'd forgotten to add the pedals, that thankfully I was able to slide them in like so. A little bit awkward, but got there in the end. And the wheels, I went with the gold ones, which look a little bit more like the Opera ones, but I then painted them chrome silver. These go on really nicely, and they're all the same, so no worries about which one's which. They're not an exact match, but they look pretty good. I also picked out the wheel nuts using a little bit of black. Now once the bodywork was clear coated, I masked around the window trims here using some masking tape and then a fine blade just to make it as neat as possible. And then just used some black Revell acrylic. I quite like using this for this kind of job. If you do make a mistake, it can be removed quite easily. Thin this down just a little bit with water. You can see you have to be very careful doing this kind of job. I did this now because I figured I'm not going to be polishing around here anyway, so it should be alright. Also did the insides of the tail lights. Very important to use a fine brush for this kind of job. There we are. Now I did some wet sanding and polishing, having left the clear coat to cure for about 5 days. This is a Tamiya 3000 grit sanding sponge. And then I used Kent Models Hyper Polish with a kind of soft, bristly attachment to my Dremel to polish it really nice and gently. Have to be careful, especially around raised details. Don't want to remove any of those paint or decals accidentally. I used the window masks included and then painted the front and rear windscreen using some black on the insides, and also masked off around this rear section, kind of diffuser sort of section. The real Opera Performance S2000 actually does have an additional diffuser, but I decided not to make one on this occasion. But you probably could have put some together using a bit of a sheet styrene or something like that. They're just clearing up any mistakes. There we are. Added a little bit of silver to the inside of those tail lights. Here, as you can see, if you want to keep the side windows, very important to mask those off. And pretty pleased with how these look. And this glues into the back of the window like so. I used some new glue, which I hadn't tried before, called Rocket, which is a kind of foam-safe CA glue, which was quite easy to use and didn't damage the plastic, so that was quite nice. And there you can see how the roof just sits on the top like that. I won't glue it. Headlight housings need to have a little black surround. So again, using the Revell satin black for that. Just using a small amount of that foam safe glue to attach a tiny little lens to those. Very difficult to do this. And then you've got the black little grille which goes at the bottom. Actually didn't paint this. I thought, why not? It's black plastic in real life. Then for the taillight lenses, the inside one is clear and the outside one is red. Use some red Sharpie to do that. And once you got them the right way round, didn't actually need any glue, just make sure you get them in the right position. For the headlights and taillights, I went around the outside with a little bit of black Sharpie to look like the rubbers. And then on the taillights, they also have another little Opera Performance logo. So I use the black and white ones, and these should go over the top of the silver kind of, I guess they're reversing lights. There we are. Used a small amount of that foam safe CA to attach those, and I'm pretty pleased with how that looks. Again, used a little bit of the foam safe CA here, and the central brake light I did a little bit of red on the inside and then went over the rest of it with some Tamiya smoke, and I think that gives the look that I was after. These clip in really nicely. There's some logical places for them to go, and again, just use a small amount of that CA glue. And the headlight lenses were really well designed, because of the way they're made with a kind of pointy corner. You can kind of slide them into place like so, and this one actually went in without the need for any glue. I used a small amount of orange on the inside of the headlight, sort of to look like the indicators. Here adding the windscreen wipers. And then once those are cured, there's a couple of little pinholes to go in the inside of the bodywork like so. And once that's set, you can then sort of mate it together with the bodywork like so. Clip in the front and rear section, and we're nearly done. Pop the roof on top just to make sure I'm happy with it. And then there's this sun strip here. The real one is actually just white text, but I've no way of recreating something like that. So I used a white decal sheet with a black background. And then I used a small amount of the same CA with some photo etch bonnet clips just on either side of the 8 on the front. There we are. And add the wing. And the little door mirrors. These were done in black. The real one has more sort of racing style mirrors, but I didn't have anything like that, so I used these. And there we are. It's finished. I was really pleased with how this went together. I do believe that this is a modern classic, the S2000, and I'm pretty happy with the modification to create the Opera Performance version. I'm going to give it a BOAB score, so you can have a look at here to see what you think. Do you agree with me? I would really recommend this to both beginners and to more experienced builders. And remember that you can get 10% off your order at Kent Models by using the code BOAB10 at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks very much for watching. I'm sorry that my output's been a little bit low recently. I've been very busy at my real job, but looking forward to getting a couple more builds done before Christmas. Thanks very much for watching, and leave a comment down below, like, share, subscribe, all those things. I'll see you soon.